Dudes, what's up? So I'm gonna be doing this a little differently. This is more of a story-driven point, um, and going forward, I want to be able to focus more game time on stuff that's not so much of an exposition. So with that being said, I've prepared this whole dialogue. You guys are welcome to listen. If you are clicking this, I'm assuming you're interested. Please follow through to the end of it. I know it's a little bit longer, but it explains pretty much everything that you could want to know up to this point, in a manner that I think makes a lot of sense. If you guys have any questions, we can talk about it in game. We're going to pick up in game as soon as this resides. So going forward, if you guys can remember from last time, you were standing on the floor, or bound to the floor, on your knees. Thran had kind of sat there and was like, "What the hell are you guys doing?" Gave you a big talking, was pissed off, and ended up killing Soulmash, and that's where we left off. So, as the group lies on the floor, bound by this immovable force, Thran turns to the Shadows Guard and pronounces, "You are dismissed. Merlin, if I could spare a moment." "Aye, do as you need." The flames on the wall flicker with a light, cooling blue, and the magical shackling seems to ease itself away from the bodies of the adventurers. Perhaps my introduction needs a bit of backstory. I mean you no harm, adventurers, and you must have many unanswered questions at this point. Looking upon my past, I see many qualities of myself in this group. It leads me to believe your past actions have been on the counts of misguidance, rather than idiocracy. I apologize on behalf of your brother in Soulmash. If it were my decision, he would be alive. Merlin, however, does not take kindly to his lands being threatened, and demanded retribution of the highest form. For as story is concerned, Merlin's allegiance is of the utmost importance to keep in good standing. You will soon learn the importance of knowing the difference between an enemy and an ally. During our last convening, I had to leave on unintended affairs, and did not have the chance to give further explanation nor instruction. So let's begin. My name is Leonices Arifin, son of the late High Lord, Wolnir Arifin, a name you may be familiar with. The flames flicker brightly of orange and cool back to their light blue after Wolnir's name is spoken. My common name is that which I took under oath of the Covenant of Astoria, Thran. However, it is also my calling card as the servant at the right hand of the king, Rondar. Now, let me retell you a story which you must have heard nearly hundreds of times in your youth, as this pertains to not only my civilization, but the kingdoms of here and the rest of the world as we well know it. Nearly 200 calendars in passing now, the final linking of the Great Flame had become possible. The flames each represented a powerful virtue and were bestowed upon the lands in the hands of a deity that corresponded to each, one for honor, one for truth, one for loyalty, one for discipline, and one for perseverance. Each had been ignited and their powers harnessed by the great wizarding school of Arcana after thousands of years of frustration. One flame lay in each of the great territories. The wizarding school's combined efforts gave the flames life, burning as bright as daylight upon the civilizations, bringing 9 calendars without frost nor plague, yielding the finest crops the lands have ever seen before. At the morn of the 10th calendar, the flame's size began to suffer, and as the calendar progressed, crops' yield began to diminish. Upon the calendar of the 11th, the arch-wizard of Arcana, Ilithir Brightmoon, claimed that the linking of flames would further their power for ages to come. This was according to ancient scripture, and this would bring about a period of golden civilization and divine prosperity for the inhabitants of the 5 civilizations west of the Great Divide. The rulers of each kingdom arranged the most glorious of feasts to discuss the possibilities of uniting their kingdoms under a single effort. King Ronadar of the Orthendan Empire, King Daemonius of the Blackthorn Empire, King Gillian of the Eunuch Empire, King Vod of the Westhaven Empire, and King Bathan of the Archelay Empire. After much discussion and wine, the kings agreed to unite their flames into a combined energy. Under the circumstances that their individual rule of their respective lands remain intact, as well as their civil states. The School of Arcana would be enlisted to the protection of the Great Flame in Bright Moon's direct instruction. However, King Daemonius, brother of King Randar, saw the opportunity to control all 5 flames for his own kingdom. Blackthorn's reputation as a land to house of refugees, bandits, pirates, and all the other sorts of nefarious outlaws led Daemonius to believe that this was simply a ploy for the kingdoms to gain control of his own flame. In particular, the neighboring kingdom of Eunuch had long since renounced its trade with Blackthorn, insisting it would not operate with lawless citizens. It urged the other 3 kingdoms to follow suit, and they did. However, in this case, Blackthorn was effectively exiled from commerce between any kingdom, and until the flame had been harnessed, was in a state of civil purgatory. Knowing this, Daemonius, in dire secret, drew upon the strengths of many civilizations, which were banished beyond the Great Divide. Lying on the east side of the divide, goblins, chimeras, demi-liches, fiends, drow, beasts, kobolds, gargoyles, devils, abominations, ogres, and mages of the black arts all thirsted for blood and redemption against the kingdoms that had them exiled to the Forsaken Lands. Promising them a portion of his created kingdoms, Daemonius sought to destroy every semblance of race that did not bow their head to his own sword. If the Forsaken were to fulfill his wishes, they would receive appropriate portions of the ruins of the undivided world. Daemonius' plans were brought to life under the wings of Asnar Shadowhand, the once apprentice to Ilithir Brightmoon. Shadowhand's tutelage was cut short when Brightmoon learned of his applied readings and demonstrations in the arts of necromancy. He sought refuge in the upper hills of Blackthorn, and was taken under oath by Daemonius. With an army as wide as the sea and as deep as the kingdom, Daemonius and Shadowhand marched to the unsuspecting gates of Eunuch, slaughtering their army like pigs, raining fire upon their villages, raping their women, and murdering their children for sport. The severed heads of the Eunuch Council were sent to the courts of each civilization, warning them to lay down their arms and to hand over control of their flames to Shadowhand, insisting resistance would be futile. The leaders of Westhaven, Yorthendon, Arkelay, and the few that had managed to escape Eunuch convened in the Silver Spire of Yorthendon, where their plan of action was formed. Rather than lie down their great weapons and be mercilessly slaughtered like the civilization of Eunuch, they assembled the greatest warriors of their lands to combine efforts. The amount of lives that were lost in the ensuing wars were immeasurable. The Great Wars continued for nearly 7 years, showing no signs of stopping, until Brightmoon's spies saw a weakness in the eastern hills up to Blackthorn. The most powerful wizards of Arcana, the most honorable of paladins, the finest of fighters, the most sure-handed of rogue, the most cunning of bard, the most elusive of druid, the most powerful of sorcerers, and the most sure-handed of ranger, set out to retrieve the powers of the Blackthorn Flame, hoping to unite the final flame and bring the 4 kingdoms' military powers beyond belief. Upon arrival, just hundreds of yards from the flame's lay place, the group was surrounded and forced into a fight to the death. Amongst the brave was my own father, Wolnir, leader of the Paladins' Council. Wolnir and his comrades in battle fought for 24 hours continually, massacring hordes of the most grotesque and awful evils this world has ever seen. That was, until Shadowhand had arrived. The necromantic powers of Shadowhand, combined with the brute force of his army, forced the company to disengage and split into many directions. The force could only hold for so long. The mages were weakened from continual casting. The paladins' divine auras became incapable of holding back the immeasurable evils surrounding the force. The deft acrobatics of the rogues had taken a toll on their bodies. The weapons of the great warriors began to chip and dull, and the amount of targets became so numerous the rangers could not ready their bows quickly enough. In a last attempt, Wolnir's group combined their efforts into the flame, throwing every ounce of energy they may have into destroying its existence. The Arcana mages drew every ounce of strength from one another, channeling their efforts into the flame itself. The raw energy of such magics caused the flame to unleash its own vigor into the world. nothing would survive to ever tell the tale. The exception being a message documenting the final moments, tied to the White Owl of White Moon himself, which had managed to reach the Court of Kings. The kingdom of Blackthorn was engulfed in a flame that lasted a century. The greatest heroes the kingdoms have ever seen were swept into the flame's fiery inferno, alongside the self-proclaimed King of Death himself, Daemonius, and his dreadful army. The residing flames of the four kingdoms were snuffed of life, and the hope of uniting the great kingdoms under an endless age of prosperity has been relegated to the books of history and the scripture of Arcana. The next part of the story, however, you may not be so familiar with. The Shadow's Guard was formed under the last standing member of the School of Arcana, one whom was believed to be dead by all. This wizard, whose name shall never be spoken to outsiders, created the Shadow's Guard to protect the kingdoms against evils that may ever threaten the world, should the flames reawaken. Our existence is unknown to everyone and anyone but our closest allies and members. However, we fear that our time to serve may be called quickly. There have been rumors of a flame flickering every season for a brief moment over the past 2 calendars in the lands of Blackthorn once more. The most terrible of civilization has found their home in the barren lands to the north after the fire resided. It has no official form of government. It is a place of fear, anguish, and misfortune. If the rumors are true, we will need allies. Our spies have reported to us the moving of Smo and his appalling horde into the lands of Blackthorn. Their own passage, granted over the Great Divide by what seems to be dark magic from the eastern side of the divide. If this holds true, we must act now. The flame's control cannot fall into the hands of those who do not align themselves with the virtues of life. If they do, the world as we know it may well cease to exist. The Forest of Infinite Paths has been bested only a handful of times in its 200-year existence by myself and my companions who stand alongside me. The torches in the background flicker brightly to life, and the trails of smoke seem to form nearly 6 shadow guards behind Thran himself. And by each of you lying in the room in front of me, I ask for your help, brothers, to protect all that you know and love. And we will pick up in game where this ends.